Let this sink in. In less than a month, after over 6 long years, we'll finally be playing the latest first-person installment of the Halo franchise, Halo Infinite. Now, over the last few months, we've been treated to previews for both campaign and multiplayer, and in today's little mini review, I'll be talking about my personal opinions regarding everything we've seen so far. Before we dive into things, I'd like to take a moment to note that even with the knowledge dump we've received recently, we still know relatively little about the game itself. More specifically in regards to the campaign. How will it play out? We know what 343 Industries is aiming for here, and that's the concept of an open-world Halo experience. And it's funny when you think about it. Years ago, when I published the conclusion of my Halo the Rise and Fall series, I emphasized that the next major Halo installment should in fact be more open. And while the current concept behind Halo Infinite isn't exactly what I had in mind, it's definitely a step in the direction that I was thinking. But what are we expecting exactly? It isn't really the first time we've experienced the concept of an open-world Halo game. Well, at least semi-open world. Remember Halo 3 ODST? The game itself is made up of the hub world of nighttime New Mombasa. The map itself is fairly large, and the only way you can access the core missions of the game is to find certain clues throughout the city. So, we basically have a large explorable hub world that leads into the game's actual core missions. But how will Halo Infinite play out in terms of the overall campaign flow? Will it have a similar concept to ODST's layout, or will this feel more like games similar to Fallout, Far Cry, and Skyrim? Usually by now we know how many missions there will be along with the achievements that go along with conquering said missions. But as of the present, with the game's release date less than a month out, we still know nothing about the campaign's overall structure and design. But here's what we do know. I was lucky enough to be invited by 343 Industries into their Halo Insider program, and with it, I was able to test out the last 2 Halo Infinite multiplayer flights. And I will admit, I was very impressed. I mean, sure, the graphics are fine and all, but I was really taken in by the semi-classic art design behind the Spartans, the graphics, and the animations. I really appreciate the fact that we now have a training mode that utilizes bots. I've been wanting bots in Halo multiplayer dating all the way back to Halo Combat Evolved 20 years ago. Now that we're finally getting them after all this time is just flat out awesome. You can even customize their level of fighting style. I had a blast with this new addition to Halo and literally spent hours mowing down fairly intelligent bots. I will say that the initial color scheme and lack of red versus blue took me off guard and confused the hell out of me, at least at first. I literally spent the first 20 minutes trying to shoot at my own guys until I realized that I actually had teammates and that it wasn't a free-for-all and that they were on my own side. The red and blue highlights around friend and foe players are subtle, but once you realize they're there, you'll adjust almost instantly. It took me quite a while before I was able to find a multiplayer match, and fortunately, to my utter joy, it was Big Team Battle. Now, unfortunately, my new 4K external Elgato capture card completely foobarred the footage, so I can't show it here. Maybe, just maybe, I'll do a separate video on that little devil machine down the line, but for now, at the very least, I can describe it to you. The maps themselves are vast, but even so, thanks to the sheer number of players that can be on the battlefield at any given time, there is never a dull moment. There's always constantly something happening either near or around you, and it's absolutely glorious. The weapons and setting all feel both great and unique, and this really does seem like a return to true OG form. There is one thing that bothers me though. The armor abilities / equipment that's included still feels a bit off. Most of what I used didn't seem to have much effect at all, but the grapple shot on the other hand feels very overpowered, especially when you stop and consider the fact that it can be used to hijack vehicles from both land and air. It'll be interesting to see how this affects the overall experience for the main player base. But on the bright side, the multiplayer is 100% free to download and play, so even if you don't find the experience enjoyable, you're not anything out of pocket. The campaign is where the $60 ticket comes into play, and based on what I've seen so far, it may very well be worth the shelf price for that alone. While I find it personally saddening that for the first time, no form of campaign co-op will be available at launch, there does seem like there's going to be plenty for one single player to do. And I absolutely love the look of the Banished units, and how this time around they're not all red like we saw in Halo Wars 2. It's clear to see different variants in rank, and the aesthetics remind me more of a classic Halo title, more than what we've seen in the last 10 years. I also appreciate the fact that there will be additional optional objectives to achieve within the game, meaning that, like with the original Halo, the game can be played many times over while granting the player a very different and diverse experience every time. Fast travel does have me a little bit worried, as if it's not implemented correctly, it could potentially break the immersion of the game itself. However, given the fact that we already know that Halo rings technically have a teleportation grid, hopefully 343 Industries decides to utilize this concept for fast travel in order to keep things consistent. Now, how the UNSC is able to interface with this level of technology is currently beyond me, but as long as it's given a reason that can be considered canon in the Halo universe, it's a concept that might actually work. I'm still a bit disappointed that both Campaign Co-op and Forge won't be included at launch, but to play devil's advocate for a moment, I'd rather have a polished final product rather than a broken one. Fallout 76, Cyberpunk 2077. Sorry, I don't know what came over me there. So with everything we've seen and know about regarding Halo Infinite so far, what are you most looking forward to regarding its release date next month? What are you dreading the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below, and I'd love to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy day to sit down and watch this video. I certainly hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope you'll consider subscribing for more great Halo content and beyond right here on the channel, especially Halo Infinite. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful week. I'll catch you all right back here next time, and as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.